Hello and welcome to another episode of Emacs. In today's video, I'm going to cover the essentials of registers and bookmarks. Registers and bookmarks are a way to store and retrieve commonly used information. You can imagine it like a clipboard program with multiple clipboards. Additionally, registers can store more than just text. They can store things like positions in files, window configurations, rectangles, macros, and more. Let's jump in. The first command we're going to learn about registers is storing the point into a register. So right now, the point is here on line 4, it looks like. At the beginning of this is not a variable. And I'm going to store that location into a register. And the command is Control-X, R, space, which will store the point into a register. And now we need to tell it what register to store it in. So I'm going to store it in the register L. And then I just hit the L character. So what this does is it stores the current point into a register of L. And now that L is stored into a register, I can move around the file. Maybe I'll go to the bottom here. And if I want to go back to that location, I can jump to that register with Control-X, R, J for jump. And then I'm going to hit L to jump to the L register. And you see that it takes me right back to the place where point was stored in the register L. When working with registers, you'll notice that Control-X-R is a common prefix. We can think of it as the register prefix. So to store the point, we do the register prefix and then a space. So I'll move here to the var expression, and I'll do the register prefix Control-X-R, and then I'll hit space to store the point into a register, and again L to store it in the register L. And let's jump back to it with Control-X-R-J and then L. Now, similar to the clipboard, we can also store text into a register. So let's go ahead and do that by highlighting the region with meta H. And I'll then store the highlighted region into a register with Control-X-R as the prefix, and then S, kind of like save, to save the text into a register. And I'm going to store this into the register I. So now the register I stores the text representing this function, and we can insert that by doing Control-X-R, I for insert, and then I again for the register I, and we see that this function was copied again into the buffer. Now, if you noticed, the command to store text into the register didn't remove the text from the buffer, but we can do that if we pass the prefix argument to it. So let's highlight the function and run the prefix command, and then Control-X-R-S and store that register into I. And you see it removes the text from the buffer, in addition to storing that text into the register I. In addition to storing text in a register, we can also append text to a register. And for that, we use the increment register command, which is essentially the register prefix and the plus. So we already have stored the basic function call in the register I. So we can highlight this var and then use Control-X-R and then a plus to increment register. And we're going to do the register I, which stored our previous text. We can also use the Control-U prefix, which would have removed the selected text from the buffer. And then again, we can insert that with Control-X-R, I, and insert register I. And you see it has the basic function call and the var clause. Registers are very flexible. They allow us to store things such as text, but we can also store things like window configurations. So for that, I'm going to open up a new window and maybe open up a new file called newtest.go. And let's say that you very commonly want to have this configuration of windows. You can store that into a register with Control-X-R, W, and store the window configuration into a register. We'll store that into the register P. And let's say you change your window configuration, for example, closing that window, and you want to go back to the previous configuration that you had. So for that, we can do Control-X-R-J, which is like jump to register, and then we'll jump to the register P. And you see that it resets my window configuration to the one that I prefer. Another cool thing that we can store into registers are files themselves. So if you have a common file that you continue to open, you can store that into a register for easy access. So as an example, we run the command evaluate set-register, and we'll set it to $L for the variable L. And here's the syntax. We do open quote and then file dot and then the file name, for example, /temp/stuff. And this command will store that into the register L. So I'm not aware of a key binding for this, and because it's so complex, this might be something that you'd want to put into your init file rather than type it out each time. So let's go ahead and run that, and that should store the file temp stuff into the register L. So to go to that file, we use the jump to register command. So register prefix J, Control-X, R, J, and we'll jump to the register L. And you see that this has opened up the file /temp/stuff. So far, this video has been primarily about registers. There's another similar concept called a bookmark. So a bookmark stores a location in a file into something that's like a register, but these bookmarks can be persisted over restarts of Emacs. So let's say that in this file, you're really interested in this basic function call, and you keep coming back to that location. You could store this into a bookmark by using Control-X-R, notice the prefix, and then M to store it into a bookmark, and we'll call this bookmark my favorite function, and we'll hit enter to store it. And now there's a bookmark stored there. So let's say we even close this file and we want to go back to that bookmark. Well, first let's look at what bookmarks we have. For that, we can do Control-X-R-L, and it shows the two bookmarks that I've set. So here's this one, my favorite function. So to jump to a specific bookmark, we'll run Control-X-R-B, and we'll jump to bookmark my, and tab complete, favorite function. Hit enter, and look at that. It takes us immediately to this file, to the location that we're interested in. And now that we've set all of these bookmarks, we want to be sure that they are persisted over Emacs restarts. So for that, we're going to do meta-x bookmark-save. And this should save it into the default bookmarks file, and you can configure that location if you like. Okay, so just to recap, we've learned about registers, which are a way to store information into a clipboard-like fashion. And we can store many different types of information, such as text, numbers, locations in a file, or even window configurations or files themselves. And we also learned about bookmarks, which are very similar to registers, but only store locations in files, and those can be persisted over time. Okay, and if you have any questions or feedback, don't forget to leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching.